Hello, Miss Shannon. Thank you for seeing me today.
Okay.
As you know, I've taught lesson 3, the third recorded lesson for Moreland, and I've covered standards 4 and 5.
Right.
Right. I taught facts and opinions, and I delved deeper into it than I did before. I initially taught facts and opinions, although it was only for 30 minutes as it was part of the curriculum. This was a chance to deepen their knowledge and a chance to remediate any of the misconceptions that they had before.
Okay. So one of my first things in looking at the video is I really wanted to see how many students are engaged in learning. We talked about this last time too,
That's
right?
yes.
So what was your impression of the student engagement?
Some were more engaged than others. I did try to name them more evenly, though. But definitely, we've got different interaction patterns and different levels of engagement in class.
So I think, there's always going to be the students who sit in the back corners or the back
Yes.
row of the classroom who try, whether it's for a lack of want or a lack of desire to participate, or it's a lack of understanding to participate, who are going to try and sneak by. So one of probably the biggest challenges that I'm going to give you is for your next class is to walk around,
Okay.
right? Most of your class you spend at the front of the board,
Yes.
talking to the students. I would love to see you at the back of the room,
Okay.
right? Because it gives the students a different perspective as well. If they're always used to seeing you at the front of the room, then they're going to get into the habit of participating or not, right? But if you are constantly wandering around and sometimes speaking from the back of the classroom,
Okay.
then it gives children a different perspective of what is happening in the classroom.
Okay. I have questions about that, though.
Yeah.
As in, how would I, for example, present in that situation? I mean, I could talk without, well, what is he saying? I feel that's a little unnatural for me to do. I'm used to going behind them when I check up on their work, for example, when I take notes, not when presenting, though.
Right. So that's one of the problems that we have in our school is that teachers have to be presenters. And we need to kind of step away from that concept that I'm the person at the front of the room.
Okay.
Right? So one thing that you might do is when you're having someone come and observe you is have them calculate the amount of time that you're talking versus the amount of time that students are talking, right?
Teachers
Or you
have
could even
intent.
record it and you could calculate it yourself, right? Because we'll find that when we're at the front of the room, we tend to be talking, right? And the whole point of engaging our students is to have them, especially since they're second language learners, is to have them being the talkers, the communicators, right? And that kind of connects to a couple of the other things that I saw in it, in your video. One of them is you had a couple of opportunities to really have the students go into deeper thinking and critical thinking
Okay.
about whether it was a fact or an opinion. So one of the questions revolved around the Earth revolving around the sun.
Okay.
Is that a fact or an opinion?
Okay.
Right? And the student said it's a fact, and you left it at that.
But I didn't ask them why.
Right. Exactly. There were a couple other of similar kind of situations, and perhaps you know the students, well, you do know the students a lot better than I do, right? And so you might have known whether that student was like completely on task or not. But there's a 50-50 chance that that student is right, right? So if they're not sure and they guess, you've just let them kind of like slide by, right? But by challenging them and saying, okay, well, why? And they can talk about a whole year or whatever. I don't know if they know the science to that extent or not, but that would be a good way for them to practice proof, right? Which is one of your goals, and it would just be a good language development opportunity for them. So just it kind of goes on one of the things that we talked about, I think it was last time, where it was empty praise, where we're saying, okay, good job. And I've noticed that you're not doing that as much, right? But it's like, it's kind of turned into acceptance of the good answers without challenging. The next step is to challenge them more. Okay? Challenge those good answers and ask them for proof.
Okay.
Yeah?
Makes sense. I have a question on that, actually. We've got a few kids who are real talkers, and they suck time away from the others, as all classes do. Yep. I ask them, like, for example, when they raise their hands or such, if it's a question about the lesson, and for example, they might say yes, and then like, okay, and what's your question? And then
like
it's
completely
not.
Off base, yeah.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering how to look into that a little more.
Good question.
Because, for example, I got them one time. I also saw it in an observation of a different video, and I saw kids raising their hands, and the teacher said, "I didn't ask any questions. Please put your hands down."
Which is kind of detrimental to supporting curiosity and challenging their thinking. I think.
Sorry, may I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thanks. One thing I did a few times was to get them to remember their questions, and that we would discuss them during break time. It didn't really work out because their writing skills are not exactly on par, and they don't
remember,
and they don't have notebooks. So it was a bit tough for them to. They didn't remember. They didn't write it down. I would have channeled these questions into, okay, well, it's a good question about the lesson, then, let's create an activity for that where you can explore that with your peers.
So my thinking is that the more conversations your students are having in the class, the less interruptive questions you're going to have.
Yes.
So one of my thoughts was that to make this lesson more student-oriented, right? Instead of being the teacher on the stage again, right? So that you can move around. If you have your students pairing up and having those, giving each other's examples and asking each other questions, then they're using their curiosity. They're using their, I want to ask a question, but it's not on you and it's not taking up a whole bunch of time.
Yes.
So by making your lesson a little bit more student-oriented, then they get the opportunity, they have the opportunity to do the talking, which is what they want to do, right?
Yes.
It's just that you're directing them to a more focused conversation.
Okay. I've also run the risk of doing that for a group activity, so that I tried to group them nicely for not this one, but in another chances with the same kids, and they knew they would derail the conversation very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I would accept jokes as long as it's acceptable jokes, as long as it's based on the content, because they make a joke and they laugh because they know it might not be the correct answer or not. So
or
I
it
can
might
see
not
that,
be an appropriate answer.
Yes.
Especially with grade 2.
Yes, absolutely. But that kind of tells me that if they know it's funny, they know it's wrong, so they must know what it could be right, so I tolerate that. But when they start talking about something completely different, so I'm not really sure how to intervene there. That's my thing at this point.
The thing is that it's just like, it's like centers work, or it's like silent reading or buddy reading, anything like that. The students won't get it right until they've had a chance to practice it, right? So even if it screws up, it's important that we try it multiple times. Even if it's just like sitting, doing let's say we're doing partners, right? We're doing partners, one question only, right? Just ask one question each. and then you bring it back to group work or whole class work.
Okay.
They get the opportunity to try it, and you recognize it's like that positive behavior where you recognize, I liked the way you two were working. You did a really good job. Forget about, the two in the back who are joking around, and we don't need to pull them out and chastise them for working because we've modeled the proper behavior in the students who are doing it right.
Yes.
So then if we continue to build on that time and build those opportunities, then more and more students are going to see the proper way to do things, right? So that through practice, then they get an understanding of what they're supposed to be doing. And it as much as I hate the fact that every class we go over, okay, sit nicely, raise your hand, talk English, as much as I hate that, setting the expectations for our students when we're doing a new activity like that is really important. Right. So maybe, if you want to do these group works, set the expectations and assign roles in the group to somebody who's very responsible gets the behavior monitor or something like that, right? All right. Somebody else gets a time monitor. Somebody else gets to write things down. Somebody else gets to draw the pictures or whatever.
Yes.
Right? But the person who is a very responsible person gets the behavior so that they hold their teammates accountable.
Okay, fair enough. Roles, yes, of course, roles. They wouldn't exactly know what to do. They wouldn't know exactly what happens in the other groups, though.
Right, but with a discussion at the end, you can talk about what went really well.
Okay.
Right, so that all of the students know. Or you can even say to the different groups, okay, please tell me 2 things that you did really well and 2 things that you want to improve on.
Okay.
Right, and give the ownership of that lesson to the students. Then it becomes student-centered.
I see. Yeah. I'm also right now, I'm a big fan of the carrot and the stick for their age group. Mm-hmm. Do you feel the same? I mean, they're very young, and at this point, they need internal motivation as well. I find it very effective for them, even to keep them focused.
Well, I think it's effective because so many of our teachers use it, right? I think it would be equally effective if all of our teachers used intrinsic motivation. But because our students don't have a lot of opportunity for intrinsic motivation, being the leader in that or initiating that almost seems like you're punishing yourself because they're so used to extrinsic motivation that they misbehave because the extrinsic motivation isn't there. So you can tell by what I'm saying, I'm not a fan of extrinsic motivation. But I know that both of our schools are very entrenched in extrinsic motivation, be it class dojo or stickers or whatever it is.
Yes.
We do use it, and the students respond to it.
Less and less so.
Oh, okay.
Less and less so.
All right. So I had one last recommendation for you.
Yes.
I thought that it was great that you had the students writing things down on their paper and then ball it up and stress relief. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and then I totally got it once they've done it before, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because you were saying make a ball, and I'm going like, is he talking about a period at the end of the sentence? I wasn't sure.
Oh.
Make a ball. So, but then, as I watched, I got it. I understood.
Okay.
So one of the students came up to you and they asked you how to spell everyone.
Yeah.
And at first, we both misheard it. I forget what you heard. Because you repeated it to the student and then they said everyone. And the other word was green.
Okay.
Have you heard of inventive spelling?
How do you think you would spell it? I mean, I'm just...
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's exactly what it is. So it's really important for students to have, to believe themselves successful.
Yes.
Okay. And we can guide them how to spell things by helping them sound it out. It doesn't have to be perfect,
Yes.
right? Because our lesson was not a spelling lesson.
Yes.
Our lesson was fact and opinion. We were just extending it through writing down your sentences. So my other challenge to you is to not give the students the answers on how to spell things.
Okay.
So I have a rule: ask 3 before me.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? You ask your friend. You ask, or you ask your partner. You ask a friend. You look in a book.
Yes.
And then you can come to me, right?
Yes.
It's not important to spell everyone perfectly, unless everyone is on our spelling test or was last week,
Yes.
right? Green the same way. So, challenge the students to sound it out and to, ask around. And the reason is that we want them to make that connection between phoneme and written expression.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just telling them the way it looks, or the way it's supposed to be, isn't going to bridge that gap. It's going to make them jump to the next step.
Okay.
Right? So right now they are trying to figure out phonemes and written characters.
Yes.
Yeah. We want them to consolidate that and then extend it to the weirdness of English. Okay? Instead of, and that's like how they build the bridge across the river to, okay, this is how it's actually spelled. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
So just try and challenge them themselves. Challenge them to do it themselves.
I've actually tried to include phonemes recently, now that you mention it. Now, not as much with them, but I've started with them as well. So, for example, for everyone, it would be r, e, so I would go sound by sound. And teacher, it has an E at the end, but you didn't say it. It's English, yes, we put an E, but we don't say it. What letter do you not see in climb? We put a B. Why? English.
Well, actually, probably then you have to go to Latin or German or
that's
something. But
at one time I did actually explain to them, look, English comes from French, it comes from German, and in this language it was a K, and then, for example, look at SC makes a S in scissors, and then like teacher, something with that makes an sk.
Like school.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for teaching me. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. English. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
I think. Here's the other thing. Your microphone.
Yeah, it's only one of the two, and it's.
I know it's an earbud. I get it.
Can't hear the kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to hear the kids more than I hear you.
Okay.
Because. And I don't know how you're going to do it. I mean, maybe you could borrow the video camera that's in my room and then set it up at the back of the room like you've been doing, because it has a broader mic.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important. Maybe I'm wrong. Moreland is looking at your teaching style. It's not looking at student learning style. So maybe I'm wrong, right?
Okay.
So maybe ask for advice.
Okay.
But when I do an observation, I do a classroom observation. I don't do a teacher observation.
Okay.
Right? I want to come in. I want to see how are the students responding to how a lesson is being taught. So I want to hear the students. I want to hear what they're saying. I want to look at how they're understanding. I want to watch their visible thinking.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, because it could be a perfect lesson, but for another class, not for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got 2 of them, so maybe I could place one in on the chair and between others.
Yeah.
Guess I
You
could
can
get
always come and use my video camera
Thanks.
from my office, because that's what it's there for.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
I'll
Thank you very much.